what's up, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, the podcast where young rock metal fans discover new music and find players where they can connect and feel accepted. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. We are going all the way to Italy for this one. You guys know I love my Italian metalcore, and this band, well, they're going all over the place with music, but is metalcore a part of it? Yep. And the conversation here is insane. If you're in a band, you're like label or independent or housework, this band is definitely be one for you to check out because they're doing it all. Trust me, it's awesome. Before we jump into the podcast, though, I want to thank sponsor for this podcast comes from Phoenix Fitness. So you guys know mosh pits are my thing, along with podcasting and talking to these bands. You know I love music and podcasting and, well, moshing. Oh, yeah. I was even thinking about, the previous night before I was recording this, I was in Chicago for Bleed From Within, Devil Wears Prada, and August Burns Red, and ooh, was that a moshy good time. And I had to make sure that I was mosh pit fit for the show. So what's mosh pit fit? Mosh pit fit is what I like to call, from my standpoint, I want to be in the pit from the beginning of the first band to the end of the headliner and never miss a beat in between. I want to make sure that I can consistently go throughout the whole entire thing, but at the exact same time, I got to be big enough so I can deliver some hits, but also, strong enough to the point where there'll be some bigger dudes in there than me, Nate. And I don't want to end up getting killed, so I got to make sure that I'm mosh pit fit enough in order to take care of this, and that's why I go to the gym 6 times a week for like 2.5, 3 hours at a time to be able to do this. A lot of weightlifting, a lot of cardio, but I also make sure that I'm preparing my body right and recovering right to make sure I continue to stay in, day out, and then when it comes time to be, in those pits, I am perfectly mosh pit fit and can do it day in and day out. And that's where Phoenix Fitness comes in, because they can help you achieve your fitness goals and get mosh pit fit with us. They have different types of supplements, such as different types of pre-workout, both stim and stim-free. I use their stim-free stuff because, guys, I don't need any more energy than I already have. Trust me on that. They also have B-Simple recovery compounds to help your muscles absorb nutrients directly after a workout. Different types of protein to help you build muscle. Whey-based protein, creatine, or they've got creatine as well. Plant-based protein, collagen-based protein. I use their whey chocolate malt flavor because, ooh, that's good stuff. They also have different types of multivitamins. Literally anything you might need to achieve your fitness goals, Phoenix Fitness has for you. So our listeners and viewers on YouTube can get 20% off. Use code CPP20 at FX.com. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness. Link in the description of the podcast. And now it is time for us to talk with Loris from Ultra Violence. And again, if you are in a band, or if you're a fan, you're wondering like, okay, which is going to be better? Go with a label, go independent. Oh my Lord, you're going to be ready for something that had me spiraling. Are you ready to have your mind go spiraling too? In the best way possible? Yeah, you are. Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, on a quest to contact every person that's following us on Instagram to give them a big thank you, just connect with them, have a good time, has led me to connect with this guy right here and his band. Plus, you've known us, especially from my standpoint, I love Italian metalcore. I love everything about it, from Stain the Canvas. We have Eli on the podcast. We had, there's a couple others that we had on there. We tried to get a couple others on as well. So I'm big into it. I made a whole video about it as well. And when this guy said, hey, want to check out my band, see what we can do? I checked it out. I'm like, yeah. So bing, bang, boom. But when it comes to this band, best way to describe it is, I really don't know how to describe their sound. I've heard a bunch of metalcore in there, sometimes some experimental pop rock, some post-hardcore pieces, some rock. It's all over the place. It's a grab bag of just everything you could possibly want. So enough with me pumping it up. Let's just jump right into it. So please welcome Loris from the band Ultra Violence to the podcast. So Loris, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. And hi, everybody. How's it going? Yeah, as you were saying, I was happy to find out about your podcast, and I actually found out about it thanks to the Italian bands like Stain the Canvas. I watched some clips and I was like, oh, this is cool. This guy is really good. Like he gets like all the information before doing the interview. Is really prepared, and I really love that. So I was like, good job, man. And then we started talking.
Oh, well, thank you. Because I remember, with the Stain the Canvas guys, those guys, they're absolutely fantastic. I literally had them on the podcast. Okay, so here's a funny story. We were set to do the first time I ever interviewed them. I was set to interview them, And it was the day when like all of a sudden stuff started shutting down because of the pandemic, especially across the world. And then we got it rescheduled, and it was the first day when the whole entire world was in lockdown. That was the first time we ever interviewed. It was like, okay, what the heck's going on? We're gonna get to see these guys. Then they started coming out their second album, and I found out their PR contact, and they're like, okay, I really want to do this. And it was like, yeah, they want to do this. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm like, yay! Apparently I'm still good here. So more I can find out about Italian music and Italian metal especially, I'm all for it, man. So connecting with you like that through this, man, first off, stay in the canvas. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have to give them a lot of thanks. So before we jump into a lot of things, just, man, how has everything been going in your world lately? How have you been doing? How has everything going with the band? Just, how's life been?
Oh, yeah. Been going through a lot of changes lately in my life. And with the band, I'm actually concentrating on writing as much as possible and like getting better at writing and producing our own stuff. And, the way I am, if I don't have a song that I'm working on, I I mean, I need it. I need it in my life to have a song that I'm working on, and then I know that it's going to be out in the future. Just to get on with my life, I need to have that reminder, that thing that I can even work on like 1 hour a day, and other than doing like class like normal jobs and other normal stuff in life. So that's what I'm concentrating on lately, and I'm also working for other artists and other bands, helping them shape their sounds and produce and write, and that's what's going on. And unfortunately, not a lot of live action on our side. We just had like one show back in December in Milan. It was really cool, and I can't wait to do more. But it's just we need to grow a little bit more to get like the right opportunities to do shows that really matters, to take part on tours that we'd really love to be part of, other instead of just going out just for the sake of playing live and not having like a solid organization behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And this kind of reminds me of the conversation I recently had with Jeremy from the band Earth Groans. We were talking about having been successful when it came to being a musician, being in a band, and how he looked at it as it was like it's 80% business and 20% creative. And taking a look at from your aspect, you're kind of following along with that, where you do have the time where you're working on, everything with ultrasounds, where you're writing, where you're doing all of that, where you have, maybe the one show where you perform, and also working with other artists to help them from the time. So you're being creative there. But for the majority of it is, okay, we have to be on the business side of it so that when we continue to go forward, we have everything set up there and we're continuing to grow our sound in that way where people are getting to know more about it. You guys are going and working alongside, other bands. You, like for yourself, you are just continuing to try and build up that base behind you so that you can go and do these things. You're taking this as seriously as you should, with creating that balance between being able to grow the band in terms of listenership, in terms of viability, in terms of touring, in terms of team, everything around there, while still keeping that creative aspect in mind. Because if you're 100% creative, then your music is never going to really reach anybody because there's going to be no way to push it out there. But if you're 100% business and there's no creative, then you're not going to be putting anything out there of substance. You have to find that balance. And it seems like right now you are working to really find that balance. And the fact that you want to have a song you have to work on writing every single day, have an hour here, have an hour there every day, you're going to fuel that creative, fire to keep it going, so that when the business stuff gets a little tedious, gets a little boring, you can always rely back on the creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And luckily, I love doing both sides of the thing. That's why we've been able to do it for so long, because actually that's what I love doing, especially like the business side of the band. I kind of like it, and the creative side, absolutely love it. So it's kind of easy for me to take care of that because it doesn't feel like a struggle. And I'm actually excited before connecting with you right now for the podcast. Holy shit! Did you hear that?
I saw the flash of lightning in the window behind you. I was like, is that just like a random flash of light, or was that lightning or what? But now I know what it was.
It's going down like the rain is pouring down right now here in Italy. Um, there was like a gigantic thunder. Anyway, I was saying before connecting to the podcast with you, I was listening to final mix of a new song that I've been working on, and I'm so excited. Like every time that we release a new song, I'm always like, "Oh, it's the best song we've ever done." But this one really feels like it, and I cannot wait to release it. Also, it's probably gonna come out with a label, and we haven't been doing releases with labels since 2018 because we went completely independent, and so I'm excited that this label reached out to us, and we managed to finish this song on time, and it's sounding great. So I can't wait to release it. And also, there's another one that I've been working on prior to this one that it's almost ready. So we have a couple new ones ready to go out, and I cannot wait to release them.
Okay, now this is definitely something I do want to dive into. I also want to dive into the song and the final mix because, I mean, just looking at your eyes and hearing the excitement in your voice, I know there's a lot behind there, and I do want to bring it to light so, we can basically be like, okay, when this song is ready to come out, you're going to want to go listen to it. Yeah! Full WWE wrestling promo style. But through your time, being in a band, through your time with Ultraviolence, working and also, putting things out with labels and then going fully independent and now working to do releases again with a label, I've got a couple of questions around there that just are sitting in my brain. And my first one is, back in 2018, why did you guys decide to go from a label to go independent? Because I know a lot of artists that have gone from the labels to the independent route lately.
Yeah, actually, I didn't like the label that we were in. I mean, not in a bad way. Like it was a good label, but I didn't feel like they were taking care of the project in a way that would make sense for us to completely divide our earnings with them. If you know what I mean. Like
Mm-hmm.
they weren't doing enough work to deserve half the earning from the music. So I was like, we might as well go independent and keep 100% of the earnings because we're pretty much doing everything ourselves anyway. So that was the main reason. Also, another reason was that we changed style of music a little bit from thrash kind of kind of full blown thrash metal to some more like metalcore or alternative rock. I don't know how to call it, but that also made sense because the label that we were in, it was like an extreme metal label, so it didn't make sense to continue with them. And I didn't look for new labels anyway because I wanted to try this in completely independent thing, and it worked out well for us. I mean, I like doing it. I like taking care of all the videos and releases and distribution on the platforms and printing the CDs, like really, really DIY, but it meant a lot to me. Like it was really cool to take care of every single aspect. And actually, everything came out better than before. So even the videos and the graphics and everything was like looked more professional. So we were like, we didn't really need that. But yeah, and even the earnings, even though it's not much, absolutely not at all to sustain like a
Mm-hmm.
career, but the earnings that we've seen coming from Spotify, for example, they were satisfying to be like, we made this music and now we're getting some money back. And we don't have to wait for the label to just send out statements like 1 year after the songs were out with like half what we were supposed to earn. So it felt good.
See, now that makes a lot of sense because when I'm thinking about it from the other conversation I've had with a lot of other artists, there's a couple of reasons why I've seen them gone independent, and you kind of fit into there. One is, the earning side of things. If a label isn't really, doing enough of what you think in terms of being able to earn those earnings, you're going to want to find a way to get that money back for you because you feel like you've earned that money. And even though the label is going to be helping you out at some point, that what they're helping you out with and what their cut is are not on equal measure, and all the time it's going to be where the monetary version of it is going to be much more than the work that's being put in there. So when you see that, you want that money back. Secondly, what you said when it came to, more on the extreme metal side, more on the thrash metal side, when you want to go and change up your sound, unless a label, I've seen this, unless a label is very, very heavily invested into a band and into their persona, into their, who's just like, how they write their songs, how everything is there. The most that they're going to be invested into is their sound, and they're going to want something that they feel like they can market and is consistently there. So when you want to explore on different sounds, if you're going to try to explore metalcore, if you're going to try to explore, I'm trying to think, like alternative rock, more of a experimental pop rock, put some post-hardcore in there. If they're not as invested in you, but they're just invested in the sound that you guys made on the records that you had just previously, they're going to want to try and find a way to force you to stay in that lane because that's what they see as the money-making opportunity. But I mean, there's always bands that can break that. Take a look at Bad Omens right now, I believe Sumerian Records, where, Bad Omens, you take a look at listen to their first record, that's metalcore through and through. Take a listen to their second record, it's got a good amount of metalcore in there, but then there's some variations. And then they just went full on whatever the heck they felt like doing with the Death of Peace of Mind. And now they're one of the biggest bands in the entire world. But the label didn't let them stay in a box. They let them go off. But they're not going to do that with every single band. But the other thing that you said, too, that I've heard for a lot of bands, too, was you just wanted to give it a shot. And that makes a lot. I'll say that makes a lot of sense, too, because take a look at what happened, especially since with the pandemic once it hit. How are bands going to try and get themselves out there? They're going to have to do whatever they could. They're going to have to do whatever they could to produce their own content, to put out their own stuff. And with the invention of the internet as well, with Spotify, streaming, YouTube, everything around there, those gatekeepers for certain things are gone. Where you don't need a label to get past those certain gatekeepers or those points of contention. You don't need a label to get you onto a streaming service. You don't need a label to get your videos onto YouTube, because where are people listening to music? Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever other streaming service you use to. Where are they watching your YouTube videos? They're not going to MTV to watch music videos. They're not going to some strict video platform. They're going to YouTube. So why not give it a shot yourself? And it seemed like, especially in that time period, it completely worked out for you guys, like you said.
Yeah, you can do it absolutely by yourself. Especially, I remember the stress when we were coming out with our album in 2018. We were like having to send the video to the label and waiting for them to post it on YouTube, and then they would like, no, we need to postpone it. But we had like shows coming, so it was all messed up because of the other releases that this label had to take care of. And now we were like, let's just choose the day and we can like release it whenever we want, and we don't have to like wait for anyone or anything, and you can do it. And we also managed to get a lot of official Spotify playlist placements by being independent, and I didn't think that was possible. But like the first single that came out, we went straight on all new metal, I believe it's called, the playlist when all the new metal releases. And we were like at number 4 in the list, and I was like, we don't have a label. I just pitched the song to Spotify and I was like, the new song is coming out, and they put it there. So we were like, we can really do it ourselves. We don't need a label. And it happened again with the new singles, and not every one of them, but they got placements. And I was like, that's really cool for Spotify to do something like that, because I don't know, from outside you may think, oh, they're all like, they have agreements with the label where like they need to like have some spots for them in the playlist, because the Spotify playlist game is really, really important. But apparently they just decide what they want, and it's a good thing for independent bands, absolutely. And right now, to go on with the thing about the labels, we're releasing this song with a label because first of all, it's just one single. Like, they're interested in trying one single. It's not like a deal that's gonna tie us to them for 3 albums like we did in the past. Like, we've always been signed before 2018. First EP signed, and the 3 albums after that, they're all signed to a label. So as you said, we wanted to try it. But this time we're doing things like we know what it's like. So we're like, okay, one single, okay, let's give it a try. Like, we're gonna do this single together, see how it goes, see how it works, see how the song performs, and then maybe we can decide if we want to collaborate further in the future, or if we just like a single with you,
Mm-hmm.
like something like the in the electronic music world, that they like every single song goes out with a different label because they select them and they put them out. So it's something like that. And as we wanted to try being independent, now we also want to try this single thing with a label and see how it goes.
Okay, there's a couple of things I really want to get into there because now my mind is spinning a couple of different directions. First thing was when it comes to the playlist side of things, you might like when it comes to doing better as an independent versus when you're on that label. Just when it comes to label as well, they're gonna have certain enough. They're gonna have a lot of bands. It might have a lot of bands. It might have a couple, but whichever bands are putting more stock in, of course, they're gonna focus on those releases and they're gonna make sure that those releases become the best as possible. Where they're gonna say, maybe some of your releases are gonna be the best possible, but we're all human and human nature does end up embedding in there to the point where they may have just like, okay, you're gonna put your singles out, try and get on this editorial playlist. Yeah, they just might have just, laxed on that part or forgotten about it. Whereas independent side things, if you really want to do it, you're going to find a way to reach out and get a chance to do it. And even for myself, I'm not a big fan of those editorial playlists. I really don't care for them because then it's like, okay, you got a one person or group of people deciding what's new is going to go on there. So it kind of brings that gatekeeper area forward. But also with myself, I'm not ignorant to the fact that that's how a lot of people discover new music.
Yeah,
And there are
important.
bands that are going to be bands and labels that are going to be pitching all this stuff to them. So they're going to get to listen to a lot of these things and they're just going to put out whatever they like. But it gives bands a lot better of a chance when it's not something but it's just, people that are putting it out there when it's not, okay, there's going to be a very specific, back before streaming when it was, you had all these radio stations, you had all these different, you'd be like Pandora, and it was, they're going to pay to have these certain things put out there, and there's be contracts that have to have them out there. So is it the best situation? No, it's not we're always going to find something that's going to be better down the road, but is it better than what we had beforehand? Absolutely, especially for independent bands. But going with this next label for one release, that is something that kind of, when it comes to rock and metal, that's unheard of. But you did say that this is something like when it comes to electronic music, like this is something that is consistent. And that kind of blew my mind. So like, do you know how this really works, especially from the electronic side of things, and how you're going to be using it with more of the rock and metal sense when it comes to like a single release on a single label? This is just like, I couldn't believe that was the case, but now my mind is like spiraling right now. I want to know more about this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not really like I don't know the electronic music world that well, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a lot of electronic music coming out like from the same artist. Every single comes out for a different label, just because that label contacts them and they're like, "Let's do a song for us," and they're like, "Yeah." They sign a deal and they're like, "This single goes out through this label, and the next one through another label. We don't care." And that's why I refer to the electronic music world, because
Okay.
I always felt that it works this way for them. And this proposal that we got reminded me of that kind of style of doing things, and I liked it honestly, because I don't want to tie myself with the same team for like 6 years like we did in the past. And so yeah, we just want to try it, and maybe after this thing we see that we work well together, or maybe we're like, okay, it was good, but we want to go back and release things independently. Well, we still have the freedom to do what
Mm-hmm.
we want after trying this thing. It's just one song, so that's why it's really exciting. And also the cool thing is that they're gonna put like their effort, their team is gonna work towards making this single as successful as possible, and also they're going to take care of the visual things like the cover art and the like visualizer stuff and things like that I always had to take care of myself, and I don't have that much time for it, even though I really like taking care of those things. But like lately, all our cover arts and all our videos, I did them myself. They're not awesome, but they're like good enough to go along with the releases, and I didn't have to like pay thousands of euros to be a team or some people to do that for me. So the fact of having a team that does that every day, taking care of that for us, makes me happy because I can focus and I can use all my time to producing the song. And yeah, that's what exciting about it for me right now. And then I can tell you more after the song is out and after the response that we get from for it after a few months, and we'll see.
See, now I'm gonna be curious about that of when the song comes out and like what's gonna happen there. Because coming from your standpoint, just being on like, doing it as just a one single, it's again when it comes to these labels, it's these labels. What are they buying? What are they attracted to that they're trying to get? They're trying to get the music. They're trying to get you guys. They're trying to get the artists. So you're the ones that are essentially, you're the prize basically. So when it comes to labels, it's why do they want to get these bands locked in for a long period of time? Because what happens if these bands start getting bigger and bigger? Then they have that prize and they have it consistent. But if you go on like a song by song base, like with the electronic stuff, then it's, okay, what happens if that's that one song you put out absolutely hits? Well, then that label that you work with the first on that one single, they might want to go again, and it's going to be more worth your while because they're going to see more value to it, and your value is going to increase. Or they're going to try and lock you down for longer because they're going to want to be like, hey, this was successful, we want to keep this going. Or you're going to have other labels coming in competition where it's like the value is continuing to rise, but then you're kind of playing like a stock market game that way where all of a sudden if your value falls and you're going to do another one single, you might not get as much. So there's always going to be pros and cons to everything. But I like about with this one, with what you're doing is you've seen what it's like when it comes to just being on a label consistently with a certain album deal, that kind of stuff. You've seen what it's like independently. And now you're going to try and like a mix of the both of them. But with this one too, it's okay, here's the new single. Here's everything. We're going to put this out as good as possible and we're going to see what happens. So you're not tied down everything, because what happens if all of a sudden it works, but you're like, you know what? It worked and everything. We learned some things, but everything that we had been doing previously was of better quality. So let's just go back to being independent. Let's give it a shot there. But maybe you'll learn a couple of things. Always taking it as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also the cool thing about this is that this label contacted us uh, because they heard a song from us, which is Nightmares. It's probably the last single that came out, and it was a different kind of situation because I produced that song with the purpose of participating to the cyberpunk game contest. They launched a contest a few months ago when they were like, we're making an expansion to this game and we want to build a radio station inside of it, and we want to ask the fans, the musicians, to send us songs, and we're going to select 15 of them and put them in this radio station. And I was like, that's cool, I want to try that. And but it was like it was really difficult to get selected because they had like 7,800 submissions. So to narrow it down to 15 tracks was like less than 1%. And I was like, oh, I really hope that we get selected, because I wrote this song. It was more kind of electronic rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a fan of the game. I mean, I like the visuals, but I never played it, and I'm not really a gamer at all. So I always like the visuals of the game, and I was like, this goes along well with the music that I'm writing, so let's give it a shot. Unfortunately, we weren't chosen for the game. And when they announced the winners, I checked them all out, and I was thinking that was really cool of the people behind it, because they selected artists that were really, really small, like a lot smaller than us. So I was like, that's cool. Like, we didn't win, but a lot of artists that are really small, they got this incredible opportunity, and it's really a cool thing. And but we ended up releasing the song anyway, independently, because we were really proud of it. And this label found the song on YouTube, and they contacted us asking us if we wanted to like try releasing a new single with them. So at the end of the day, it worked. Something worked out with this song because I was really happy with it, and I felt like it had potential. And at the end of the day, not the cyberpunk route, but the label contacting us, it got us something at the end of the day. So I'm really happy with that song.
I mean, clearly had potential for something. It just wasn't the intended purpose. But you take a look at it in a couple of things. One, what happens if you were still on that other label and you wanted to do something like this? Well, now you're going to put out that song, but it might not go. It might go against what they want you to do, or what is the terms of your deal. So you can't put out something like that without some sort of severe penalty. But being independent, you're like, you know what? I want to give this a shot. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to end up doing something that's a little bit more different than what we're used to, because it fits the style of the competition that we're going for. It fits the style of the game, the visuals, the aesthetics, everything around there. So now you release it, and yeah, it gets some hits, it gets people to listen to it, but then you get the attention of another label that says, hey, we really like this. What if we try something for the next release? And now you're going to be giving this whole entire other idea for how to release your music and how to work alongside other labels. These labels a try in terms of, instead of being on a longer contract, instead of just being independent, you're going to give, the buffet style approach a try. And why not? Because this is one of the things that stands out to me when you brought up the electronic side of it is, if they've been doing electronic music, why have I not heard that happening in rock and metal at all? Like, where's the disconnect? Because especially in today's single-driven world with streaming, where it seems like the albums are dying, where more bands are just releasing straight singles or EPs, or if they're releasing albums, it's like, you're having like 6 or 7 or 8, even sometimes 8 singles coming off an 11-song album. Why not give it a shot? Because that's the way that the industry has been going. That's the way that culture has been going, with the way people are consuming music and what is the most, convenient way for them to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like nowadays that's the like natural way to go about it, because let's be honest, singles are more exciting, keeps the listener more like curious, and the albums they're really cool, like they're an experience. But nowadays I don't hear a lot of people that have that time to dedicate to an entire album, and it's a little bit sad, but at the same time it's how people are consuming music today, and I'm not mad about it. Like, I don't want to be like an old school kind of guy that's like, no, you gotta listen to the entire album. I'm gonna check out the singles, and if I like them, I might check out the album. What's the purpose here is to like listen to music that you enjoy. So like I'm not gonna be tied to I have to listen to 10 songs to be like a real fan.
Yeah, and even though for myself too, I do like albums, especially because there are songs that come out that aren't the singles, that when you start going through the deep cuts of them, you find out that, either in your opinion that they're even better than any of the singles that came out, or they hit you in such a way where you just get like thrown backwards and you can't believe what you heard. For me, I still remember this was like 3 years ago when Polaris released their The Death of Me album, and I like some of this. I like the singles, listen to the album, I like the album, but I got to this song called Above My Head. It just completely took me back, and just feeling the intensity of the pressure, just the power behind it. I never would have gotten that had I not listened through the whole album, because it was a deep cut on there. It wasn't promoted as a single. But taking a look at how music has been consumed, let's just say over the past, I don't know, how far do I want to go? Since, like, I'll use 1950, I'll use post World War II as the example. How was music consumed first? It was either, if you wanted to hear a single song, it was going to be on the radio, but you never knew what song was going to be, and there was a lot of payola going on at that point, the pay to play kind of stuff. So you had to listen and buy the record, but you couldn't skip on the record because it's going around and around and around. You couldn't do that on a vinyl record. 8-track tape players or cassette tapes, you could fast forward them, but it would take a lot of time, so skipping songs wasn't really necessarily worth it. When the CDs came out, you could hit the next button, you could skip the track. It made it easier, but you still had to consume the full album. You still had to buy the physical copy of it, so you were invested in the whole entire thing. You had investment in there, so you want to listen to the whole entire thing. Then when it came to iTunes and the MP3 and the iPod, yeah, you could buy individual songs, so the single was a little bit more important, but you still were purchasing them personally. So you wanted to potentially buy the whole album too, because you could have it all on there. You could get the album if it was from an artist that you like. The idea for an album was still there, but again, you could have a lot easier time selecting that single song. but then streaming comes in and you pay what, $6-7 a month and you get unlimited music for the whole month, no ads and nothing. You don't have to listen to a whole album. And pushing a single, if you push a whole album out there, that's great. But everyone's releasing so much music, so much time. You put out a new album, it's there for a month, and then it's gone in the zeitgeist of culture. But if you're releasing a new single every 2 to 3 months, even though I know that's incredibly difficult to do, but I'm just going to use an example, you're constantly maybe on one of those editorial playlists, the new metals playlist. Okay, you're on there. 2 months later, boom, a brand new song from you is on there again. Another 3 months later, boom, you're back on there again. So the name recognition keeps coming. People keep hearing the sound. People keep getting into it. It's a lot easier to do the single game now in terms of listener viability. In terms of artist viability, that can be really difficult because it's not easy to write, create, produce, record, maybe make a whole video out of a whole song and really do a whole entire distribution strategy around it consistently every 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, no, actually, I actually like it more this way from a writing perspective, because it gives me time to like really concentrate on a single production, even though it's more time consuming and it's more expensive for sure, because you gotta go like record vocals only for that song, whereas for an album you would go into the studio and record vocals for like 8 songs in 2 days, and like it makes more sense. But at the end of the day, I remember how stressful it was to write an entire album of 10 songs. You got to remember all the little details of every single song, like vocals and guitars and drums. And if there's something that you have to like change or modify, you're really going to have to be super concentrated, and you might not give the same importance to all the songs. Instead, when you're working on a single, you just have like those 3 to 4 minutes of music, and you want it to be absolutely perfect. So you're looking at the lyrics again, and you're thinking, I might change this sentence, or I might change this guitar part, or I might add this sample. Like you're really focusing on one thing that it's short, and you can really give it your 100%. And even though, as I said, it's more expensive, and we're trying to do that thing, like a new single as soon as possible. But yeah, it's like you gotta luckily lately I've been producing a lot of our stuff, so we don't go to the studio, but the mixes, we hand them out to like professional mixers, and it's expensive. Like when you do a whole album, they give you like a forfeit price. When you do a single, it's like expensive. And so from the money side of things, it's not really it's more worth it to do an album. But for the like creative aspects, I love it this way so much, especially because when you write an album, you're writing 10 songs. Maybe one of the songs you wrote it 1 year ago, but when the whole album is ready, that song it's already 1 year old, and you're releasing it, and by the time it comes out, it's 1 year and 6 months old, because all the like process that you have to go through, and then you don't really feel excited about that song anymore. Instead, with the single things, the singles thing that we're doing now, you write a song, you give it your 100%, and at max 2 months later it's out there for everyone to listen to, and you're still excited about that song. So it's even easier to promote it, and that's what I'm enjoying it the most about it.
I think the biggest thing that I was a big fan of from just that little, segment that you just gave in terms of everything was you showed both the negative side of it, and you also talk about the positive side of it as well, because when it comes down to it, yeah, no matter what, there's going to be negatives to just only doing singles, to where it's going to be potentially more expensive because you're going to go through full production of maybe 11 singles versus you do 11 songs on an album. We have to split that up over time. The money's going to be there, the full production, the distribution, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be more tedious on that aspect. But when it comes to the creative side of things, you have the freedom to change up as much as you want, and you can go in different directions if you feel like it, just because you're not tied to a certain concept. You're not tied to a certain sound that you're trying to go through on that album. You're not tied to a certain lyrical content that it's like, okay, I want every song to be and this album to be somewhere around this kind of emotion, whether it's, something that's heavy or something that's lighter. You can go and just have fun with whatever you want to go with. And if you find something new to try, you have the freedom to do that. So there's a lot of positives along with a lot of negatives, but you have to give it a shot for yourself and see what you like and what you don't. And when it comes to the creative aspect from you, I mean, again, take a look at Nightmares. You wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't, more, okay, let's see what we can do with these singles. Let's see what we can go here. I think about Falling in Reverse in that aspect, where back after like 2017, they haven't done an album since, but they've released, I want to say, for brand new songs, they've released how many? 7? And that's since the 7 in 6 years. But taking a look at the trajectory that they've been on, I mean, they were opening up for bands like playing in like 2,000 cap venues in 2017, and now they're going on a full arena tour. Like, it allows you to just, I mean, there's the other aspects that are there, but just using that as an idea, it allows you to be different, creative, and try different things with your sound that you want to try out, and allows you to take the time to perfect that, and allows you to take time to go and really understand where you want to go as an artist, and not just, okay, we want to go here, and now that we got these songs ready, they're ready to go. And then that release cycle is, a year and a half long just to get that song out from when you first were excited about it to, okay, now it's out a year and a half later. You're sitting there thinking, it's out now. I've heard this song for over a year and a half. There's no more brand new excitement for me. Even though the fans might be excited, it's hard for you to like share that excitement with them at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's
And I
the
know,
point.
I know that can't be easy, but I know you said you're working on a new song right now, getting the final mix going and listen to it, and you're just like, whoo, you were real excited about that. So, because we've just been talking about singles, what can we expect on this new song? Because you got me intrigued.
Yeah, so we did Nightmares, which was like not really metal at all. It was like more super electronic oriented and like rock, electronic rock. I would like to describe it as. But with this new song, we kind of started from Nightmares as a type of sound, and we integrated the metal aspects into it. And I'm really excited because it blended in so well, and there's screaming and clean singing. Um, and it all, I don't know, I like how it turned out. I don't know even how to describe it. It's nothing extremely like, it's not that you never heard something like that before. It's pretty difficult to do something like that right now with everything that's going on in the music industry. But it's exciting for us because we never sound that way, and I'm really happy about the lyric content as well, because as I was saying, I've been going through a lot of changes, and I've been having like the past 2 or 3 months of my life have been pretty hectic. I changed uh, house, I changed job, and I went through a breakup, and so a lot of changes, and I felt really down in some of those days. And when you get let down by so many things all at once, and I needed to write this song to get through it. And since I can remember, my only way to go through things is by writing about them in a song. And then when the music and the lyrics come together in a way that makes me feel understood, like that's when I can really process those moments. And that's why I've been listening to this song. It's almost finished. Actually, it's like I received today the final mix, but throughout the last few weeks, I've been listening to different versions of it. And I kept listening because I was like listening to my voice telling me how should I feel about what's happening to me. And it's a good reminder. And I hope that sometimes it happens to me that I listen to songs that I wrote years ago, and they talk to me in a way that I didn't expect they would do when I wrote them. And I was like, if myself from 2 years ago wrote that, and I'm listening to it now and it makes sense, like different sense than when I wrote it, but still makes sense to me, that's something I really try to like implement in our music, because I wanted to have this effect on other people as well. So I hope that this song, when it comes out, if somebody's going through that kind of things that I'm going through right now, they can find a little, like they can feel understood, and they can like feel strong to move on, because that's what's cool in my opinion about this song, that's the like reflective part of
Mhm.
it, when you in which you think, and you like really try to understand what's happening and why it has happened. And there's also a very angry part of it that express like the fact that like you sometimes when these things happens, you're just angry, not hungry, and you just want to let it out and be like, it's not right that this is happening to me because I don't deserve it. And there's also that part in the song, and yeah, that's what you can expect from it. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
See, this is what excites me about it, just from the way you're talking about it. When you're talking about all the things that you've gone through the past couple months, moving into a new house, getting a new job, going through a breakup. There's a lot of different changes that are happening there, and a lot of things that are happening all at the same time, or relatively within the same time. And there's a lot of us out there, including myself, that's going through some of this stuff right now, where there's a lot of things that are changing, and it feels like everything is happening all at the same time. And it seems like there's no end in sight to these things that are changing, whether they're good, whether they're bad, or whether they're indifferent. And it's just having to deal with all this to continue to press forward and feel like, we can't just take a step back and catch our breath and just go forward. When you're talking about, that anger that comes up there, it's an anger from frustration where, there's things that we feel like we should be able to control, but we're just not in control anymore because we never know what's going to happen next. Maybe all of a sudden, maybe it's a breakup. Maybe all of a sudden you lose your job and you're going to go get a new one. Maybe you have to move. Maybe your car completely takes a crap on itself and you have to go get a new one. And now, boom, there's a brand new car payment there. Maybe you just bought a house and, your water heater goes, or you just close on it and the roof collapses in a piece of it. And now you got to get that replaced. And you just feel all this stuff happening all at the same time, when it's just, I don't want to have this happen. And you just feel that frustration boil up in you. And next thing you know, all of a sudden you start lashing out at people. You're just trying to you get frustrated. You punch a hole in the wall kind of thing. But a lot of that is just based off of, we're just frustrated that all this keeps happening. And we're just trying to find that release of all that tension. Just, have it something like that. So when you're talking about a song and talking about exactly where you're coming from and where your mindset is, there might be a lot of people that are feeling like that. And it's a way for them to continue to connect to themselves and say, I'm not the only one going through something like this. I'm not the only one dealing with stuff like this. And if we can continue to find the thing that brings solace to us in life, we can get to that other side of all this stuff, so that we can get to the point where, we're sitting on a beach drinking, pina colada, or having a nice glass of sangria, enjoying the views, enjoying the niceness of life, and enjoying everything that's happening, instead of feeling like, as I believe Caleb Shomo said, stuck in December in the middle of summer.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. And yeah, I forgot what I was about to say. I had something I wanted to say, but I forgot about it.
I'll
It
blame
happens when you get
I'll,
older.
I'll say, no, I'll blame myself for that one, because I was kind of I had my thought. I kept going. You're probably like, oh, I got an idea here. And then all of a sudden, just, oh, dang, Kevin kept talking too much. He was finished up his thought, and I forgot about it. Yeah, I'll take the blame for that one.
No, don't worry. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm just excited for this song to come out. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, not only on top of that, but just with everything you're putting into this song, and now with a brand new style of releasing it, when it comes to releasing with a brand new label on a one song release, it's gonna be something that's gonna be interesting, and you're going into kind of a different uncharted territory, especially for a rock and metal band, just because, again, I don't know anyone else who's done this. There might be some bands that have done it, but I really don't know anyone else who has. And if they have, you're definitely on the early aspect of it. So it's brand new territory, not only for bands in rock and metal, but brand new territory for you as well. So when you're excited to release it, because the possibilities of what could happen for the positive are endless here. you never know what's going to come of this. I mean, you released Nightmares and for just for a contest, and what it led to an incredible opportunity to potentially do an insane one song release with a label that you never know exactly how that's going to affect the trajectory of your careers going forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's also what's exciting about it. And yeah, it might take us on a new path, and we're gonna get some new opportunities like we did with Nightmares. And that's always exciting. And especially because I wanna like I wanna make this band grow to the point that we can, as I was saying before, we can go out on tours that make sense, that would put us in front of people that would 100% love our music if they hear it. And I want to play those songs from our EP that came out in 2021. I want to play those songs live because we didn't have the opportunity to do that just for one show we did that, and it felt really good, and I want to feel that again. And those songs, we wrote them, you were talking about Bad Omens, we wrote them with Jolly from Bad Omens
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, and that was an incredible experience because Bad Omens, they weren't as big as they are
Mm-hmm.
now, but they were a band that I was listening to it constantly because they're amazing. And I was like, these guys, they're producing their own stuff. I want to make a really cool EP, and I want it to be independent. So let me see if these guys can help me. And I just contacted Jolly because I saw that he was from Sweden. And I was like, I'm in Italy. It makes more sense to contact him. Maybe it's in Sweden right now. I didn't know him, and he got back to me and he was like, no, no, I live in LA, but we can work on the songs. But thanks for contacting me. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I sent him a song that I was working on that turned out to be The Storm, and that was the first one I sent. I sent him the demo of it, and it was pretty different from the way it ended up uh, being like. And it was like, okay, let me see what we can do with this. And after a week, I don't remember, he sent me a new version with some addition and some changes. And at the beginning, I never experienced something like it. Like I always used to write, I was used to writing everything with the band, and didn't I wasn't used to somebody outside of the band to come in and be like, okay, let's change this. So it was a little bit weird because I thought that it was gonna add something to it, like some arrangements or some stuff like it. Instead, he like kind of moved things around a little bit and changed a few bits. And the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh no, this is what's happening, like my song. And then after I listened to it a couple times and I was like, yeah, what's happening is that it's better now. So let me see what we can do with this guy. And we started working on like the whole 5 song EP together, and it I was so happy with it. Like working with him, it was like having another band member that he but he was like coming from a completely different world compared to us, that
Mm-hmm.
we've been always writing thrash metal music, like only riff based music, and he was helping us like shaping the new sound with his experience. And I learned so much from working with him. That's why now I'm able to produce like the new song that's coming out is completely produced by myself, and the songs that I'm producing for other artists as well, I produce them for them. And it's like a lot of it has to do with me collaborating with Jolly from Bad Omens, that seeing how it worked on my songs helped me understand how a producer should work. And it was an incredible learning experience for me. And on top of it, it ended up giving me 5 songs that I'm really proud of to put on an EP. And now I'm proud to say I wrote them with Bad Omens guitarist. And I'm sure that if I would have to contact him now without knowing him, he would be like, I have no time for this. I'm sorry. Like I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a extremely successful band and we're always touring. And if I have to write for someone, it's gonna have to be like a gigantic band, and I would understand him. And luckily, I got to know him when they were big, but not extremely
Hmm.
popular like they are today. So now we're still in touch, and we probably will work on new songs together in the future when he has time to do it. Like I was emailing him a few months ago, telling him how happy I am for their success and how much they deserve it. And especially him coming from Sweden, deciding to go live in LA to join this band. I mean, I'm really like fascinated by his story and his choices in life, and how cool things they brought him. And I'm really happy for him. And luckily, we connected enough, to the point that now we can like check on each other
Hmm.
through emails. And when he has time, we could like work on a few more songs together. We have songs that we like started together, but they never really we never really finished them. They never really came out. So we might finish those ones, or I could send him a new idea and we could work some new songs together. But that's just really cool to have like a contact of such big relevance in the rock and metal world right now, that we built in the right moment in time. So that was really really cool.
I think one great way to kind of put a like a a little bow on that whole entire story too, because on top of all that, that is just incredible being able to work with Jolly, Bad Omens guitarist, being able to learn from him in terms of different things with song production, working on your music, and now you're able to take a lot of that, produce it with yourself, use your own skill set to do that, but also share that knowledge with other bands as well. And now, yes, Bad Omens, again, one of the biggest bands in the world right now. It's like, especially when it comes to metal, especially for bands that are coming up that are going to be like, we're going to look at back in them like 10 years and be like, who are the bands that took over, the 2020s in terms of metal? We're going to be looking at Bad Omens. We're looking at Spirit Box. We're looking at Sleep Token with what they're doing this year. But the thing that just amazes me is, you never know if he, if you never contact him, but you contact him, he might have the time for you. You never know. But the thing is no matter what happens, why not give it a shot? If they're big, small, medium size, just give it a shot. If you want to work with them, give it a shot. Ask them. Because the best thing they can say is yes. The second best thing they can say is no. They say yes. Oh my God. How is that possible? But you got it. You got a yes, and now you're working with someone that maybe that you admire. Maybe you're, from my standpoint for the podcast, I've emailed random like some like bands. I'm like, I'll probably never get them. Let's give it a shot right here. And then all of a sudden I get yeah, what's your availability? They'd love to be on. I'm like, whoa, huh? Okay, let's do this. But you got to give it a shot, because otherwise, if you don't give it a shot, they're not going to know you, and they're not. The answer is going to be, well, you never knew. But if they answer and they say, can't do it, no, not this time. Hey, at least you know. At least you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're taking that chance, and you never know where that chance might get you. You take a look at a lot of the great musicians out there, a lot of the great bands out there, how they got to where they are right now. A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice. But there's always like, what's one main moment that led them there? It was they took a chance on something. They tried something. They reached out and they asked somebody a question or asked to be a part of something. They took a stand on something, when it's just like, well, by taking that chance, it possibly led them to something even greater. Look at Ice Nine Kills for an example. They took a chance on going so heavily into the whole entire horror idea and the whole entire horror concept around music. We'd seen bands go that route, but not as deep as very literary and very like source material focus driven that they did. Who would have thought that would have worked? But now
Yeah,
they're who are they touring with? They're opening for
Metallica.
Metallica across the world.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. That's really inspiring, and I always love to hear those kind of stories, because yeah, I mean, you would think, okay, metal and horror, yeah, they go well together,
Mm-hmm.
but the way they did it, it's so well done that it feels like they're, I don't know, they're the band for it. There's nobody it's better at what they're doing right now, and even like colossal band like Metallica
Mm-hmm.
recognize that, and it's cool. You cannot say anything about it. You can say like, you guys nailed it. That's it. You might like it, not like it. I love their latest albums,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they deserve it. Like I was saying for Bad Omens, they deserve it. At the end of the day, if you get there, uh, it's because you deserve it. I mean, there's no like trick or magic trick that can get you there. Like the music's got to be good, the idea behind it's got to be good, and the effort that you put behind
Mm-hmm.
the whole project, it's got to be good. Otherwise, you're not gonna reach it. You can see those kind of one hit wonders
Mm-hmm.
because they, I don't know, they paid a campaign on the radio or they did something that worked once. But if you don't have that kind of like solid foundation behind the whole project, you're not gonna be able to sustain it. That's why bands like Bad Omens, Ice Nine Kills, they make it because they have like so many years of experience
Mm-hmm.
before making it, and when they actually make it, they're able to like live up to that, and they have the kind of experience that they're like they're good live, they're good at their live shows, and they're good at keeping their momentum going. So that's the difference between like a one hit wonder and a band that's supposed to make it from the start, and you can see their trajectory and they're like, yeah, like before or after, they're gonna reach that point no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this happening so many times.
It's happened so many times throughout history, and it can continue to happen. But you said it perfectly between the two. I got one more question before we head out. And when it comes to the new song, when can we expect to hear it? Is there a certain day yet, a certain time frame yet? If you're like, oh no, I can't share the date right now, don't share it. I'm just looking for something like, when can I expect to hear this? Because you're getting me excited, man.
No, don't worry. I'm not like that kind of guy that goes like, "Oh, it's all a secret." Oh, you know, because you know what? We're not at the level of Bring Me the Horizon that the teasing stuff is gonna make it more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We're at our level, which is like we just want the song to go out, and if we can give you a little preview, I would. But the thing is that I think it's gonna come out in around 2 months because we're sending out the masters to this label, and they said that that's more or less the time that it's gonna uh, that they're gonna need in order to like release the song. So more or less 2 months, and probably we're gonna release a few snippets of it on our social media before that, so to get everyone excited. And yeah, so in a couple months we should like the song should be out, and I should be already working on a new song.
I feel like you definitely would be working on a new song already by the time that one comes out, but it's about 2 months. So by the end of June, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Maybe beginning of July, but that's kind of the time frame we're looking around. Could happen, it couldn't happen, but if you're gonna want to, know when you're gonna want to follow with Ultraviolence and know all about that and when that's gonna happen. So, Laurice, as we bring this podcast to conclusion, one thing I always like to do is give my guest, which is you in this instance, a chance to say whatever you want to say, plug wherever to plug, promote wherever to promote at the end of the podcast. So, my friend, the floor is yours.
Oh yeah. So thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate it. And to everybody who's listening, like if you didn't know the band Ultraviolence, check out our latest EP from 2021. It's called Beyond, and all the singles that we released after that one. You might find something you like in those songs, especially listen to the lyrics because I always try to like put a really deep message behind it. Other than that, you can find us on social media, and we're always open to like have a conversation with the fans and people that discover our band. So feel free to message us and to take part of conversation on our social media. And yeah, that's it.
Well said. Now it's time for me in this podcast with three specific things. So first things first, when it comes to Ultraviolence, you're going to want to follow along with them on social media. You're going to want to stream that EP from 2021, and you're going to be ready when the new song comes out within the next couple of months. So best way to do that is, now I'm talking convenience here because you're going to want the easiest way to do this right. Go to the description of the podcast where it says find Ultraviolence online. There's going to be links and labels for everything down there. So you can follow them on social media. You can watch music videos. You can listen to music. You connect them on all of those platforms right there. All links to be, you don't have to do any research. You just have to go down and click the link and take it from there. That's all you got to do. I'm doing a lot of legwork for you. All you got to do is click or tap or touch or whatever you're going to do, because maybe you're on a smartphone. You're like, touch. So number 2, Loris, I like to make a certain promise to my guests on the podcast. I enjoy having on the podcast. A way to say thank you for taking your time for me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I wish to continue to support the band in the future. And my friend, you have hit on this. So my promise to you is this. It is not an if. Not an if. I hate saying if because it implies this might not happen. It's a when, because it implies it's going to happen. We just don't know what day or time yet. When I get to see you perform live for the first time, I'm going to go all Liam Neeson from Taken. I'm going to look for you. I'm going to find you. And the first round's going to be on me.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, I would love that.
Perfect. It's going to happen. I don't know when, how, where, but...
Never been to the States, and we cannot wait. I mean, as I was saying before, we're waiting for the right opportunity to do that. Like something that makes sense, like opening up for a bigger band, taking us to the States. We're already there. You don't need to say anything more, but we're just waiting for an opportunity like that.
Yeah, you guys have never been to the States. I have not been to Italy yet. So there's always a possibility for that as well. And Loris, as we bring this podcast conclusion, I cannot end this by saying goodbye because I've made you a promise. This conversation was fantastic. I'd love to be back on the podcast once again, especially to hear how this one single on a label works out, because that concept just blows my mind. I cannot say goodbye. That is way too final, my friend. No. This is, I'll see you later.
Yeah, see you later, dude.
Well, folks, I've been interviewed with Loris of the band Ultraviolence, and now it's time for Kevin's final thought. Well, the point that I had me spiraling was, of course, the one-song label agreement. Now, the reason why that had me spiraling was this. We had heard from Loris about the band being on a label and then going independent. And then when he said they're going back on a label for this release, I was like, okay, I've heard bands that go independent. They usually stick that way unless there's some weird monetary thing going on. So what was the purpose behind it? That's where my mind was going. And when he said they were doing it for a one-song thing, and he brought up how electronic artists do something similar, now that had me incredibly interested. And my takeaway from this is, if this is something that Ultraviolence finds is successful, if this has had success in the electronic music industry, and with the way that streaming is going and the way that the focus is on the single everywhere, and rock and metal is no exception, the focus being on the single, why aren't other bands potentially doing the same thing? Now, I did bring up the example of a band doing a lot of singles over the past couple of years, Falling in Reverse, but they have such a strong label agreement with Epitaph that, that's not going to end up being broken, and it's provided to be very fruitful for both parties involved. But what about the bands that you don't necessarily know about yet? What about those, low tier, middle tier players that want to become the heavy hitters in the scene today? And maybe they're independent. Maybe they're trying to get their name out there. What are they going to do? What happens if all of a sudden they decided to say, you know what? I want to try this and see what happens. And what happens? Let's use Bad Omens as the example. What would happen if Bad Omens was independent after their first 2 albums? I'm going to say this. Say after the first 2 albums, Bad Omens was independent. And then they released A Death of Peace of Mind off of a different label. And that was the one time they were going to release a whole album, though. Say they release the song Death of Peace of Mind 1, and people get into it. And now they go to a different label for the second single. And then people got into it even more. And then the third and the fourth, and people are going nuts from, songs like, what was it? Like a Villain, Nowhere to Go, Artificial Suicide. So you have 4 insane songs that people are just clamoring for. And then the album comes out from a different label, and people are just going ooh gaga over it. And now Bad Omens in the exact same position they are now. And it's like they can go and do the electronic thing where they can just go at any label they want for one song, push up. Who knows what that could have provided? Who knows what kind of opportunity that could be? Again, that's a very hypothetical because, of course, Bad Omens does have their own record deal right now, and it's probably going to be very fruitful for them, very powerful for them. So they're not. But what happens if we get a band that's going to come up that's like that has that potential, and does something, in that similar mindset, but they just release singles, and it's just one badass single after another under these different labels? what could be the possibility there? It could completely upend the current state of rock and metal in terms of how music deals are done and how record deals are done. Of course, that's always been happening, especially over the past 10 years with streaming, with the pandemic, and now, potentially this might be a thing. Watch out for it in 5 years. Either it's going to be a thing or it's going to be absolutely nothing because maybe it doesn't work in rock and metal. Who knows? The songs, the styles, the fan base, the way it's consumed is very different. Well, not the way it's the way it's consumed in terms of like streaming. Yeah, everything's consumed streaming. But how people that are the fans of it connect and consume the music holistically versus electronic. Yeah, there's going to be differences in there. So those differences could come out for a massively different thing. But it's something to watch out for, something I'm very excited for. So I want to thank Luis for sharing that. And I want to thank him being on the podcast for Ultraviolence. Again, if you want to find out more about Ultraviolence, watch, music videos, connect them on social media, and know when that new song is coming out. Link to the podcast is fine. Ultraviolence online, links, labels, everything for you. Also, make sure you're following with us online. We got social media too. Facebook, Instagram. I think Twitter is still active. No more TikTok though. So go follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can connect with us there. Feel free to message us because I'm the one that does this, so I will answer your message. And at the exact same time too, you're going to find something you like. You're going to find out more about the podcast and everything else around there. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast by hitting that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or hitting that follow button or subscribe button if you're on Spotify Podcasts or iHeartRadio and Amazon. Those subscribes are very, very helpful for us. So thank you very much for, supporting the podcast. So go and hit it. Also, thank you, Phoenix Fitness, for supporting this podcast. We're 20% off using the code CPP20 at FXS.com. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness, description of the podcast. Thank you, Loris, for being the podcast. I'm going to watch this one carefully because, oh my Lord, just the idea behind it just blows my mind. So I can't wait to see what happens. So on that note, that's good for the guys. Thank you for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!